Welcome to Secret Story. When I invited John to go dancing, it was as a friend. I thought it would be fun to go out dancing at the club with a male friend, since my husband hates to dance, that I could tell John was into me the moment we met. He is a handsome man, about 6 feet 4 inches tall, with a muscular build and smooth dark skin, but being married, the thought of us hooking up didn't even cross my mind. Down boy. Remember, I'm married, I said, looking back at him with a smile. Sorry, I can't help it. He replied, backing away from me. As we continued to dance, you just can't control yourself, can you? I asked. I tried, but... Girl. You're gonna get me in trouble. John replied. Trouble? From whom? I asked. Your husband. I'm guessing. He asked. Don't worry about him. I said. Are you for real? He asked. My husband doesn't have to know. Oh wow. I wasn't expecting this when you asked me out. I thought we were just friends, he replied, surprised but clearly excited about how things were developing. Just friends? I replied. True, but I didn't expect you to react like this, and certainly didn't think you'd be so quick to dismiss your husband, he continued. This isn't what I expected either. It's hard to think of you as just a friend when you make my so, I confessed. I couldn't believe what I was saying. My husband would kill me if he heard a word of our conversation. The thought of cheating on him had never even crossed my mind. I had never felt anything so big in my life, and I sure haven't ever felt something that size inside me. Hopefully, that was about to change. And just a few minutes ago you were all worried about how you were married and what your husband would think, he laughed, as I turned around to dance with him face to face. That was before I discovered the monster you're. I said. Let's get out of here, I said, holding his hand, pulling him behind me as I made my way through the crowd to the exit. The second we reached my car, for a moment I considered him right there in the parking lot. Just then I spotted a cop pull into the lot, putting our fun on hold. We jumped into the car as quickly as we could and pulled out of the lot. Where are we headed? I'd get a hotel room, but I'm short on cash, John said. I don't think charging a room to my husband's credit card is a good idea either, I replied, looking over at him. We'll go to my place. My husband is in bed by now, I said, crossing my fingers. What? Are you crazy? John scoffed. Where else are we going to go? He goes to bed early and is a real heavy sleeper. I assured him, praying I was right. Seriously? He asked, unconvinced. We'll have the living room to ourselves. And if we hear him get up, we'll stop and act like we're watching a movie, I explained. You are one crazy. He laughed in disbelief. A few minutes later I turned into my neighborhood. I shut off the headlights as I pulled into the driveway so not to disturb my sleeping husband. John and I got out of the car and walked up to the front door. The lights were out and the door was locked, making me feel confident that my husband was asleep in bed. We stepped inside and closed the door quietly. I led John down the hall towards the living room. As I switched on the light, I spotted my husband asleep in his recliner. Oh! I gasped, covering my mouth. My heart skipped a beat in fear of getting caught bringing another man into our house. I held on to John's arm, pulling him back as I felt him turn to run. Honey, is that you? My husband called out, rubbing his eyes. Yes, hun, just got back from dancing, I replied nervously. Who is that? He asked, looking up at the man behind me. Oh, this is John. He came out dancing with me tonight, I said, trying to think up an excuse for bringing a man home so late at night. Hey, John waved awkwardly, not sure what was about to happen. What is he doing here? My husband asked, with a puzzled look on his face. John's ride left without him, so I offered to give him a ride, I said, making it up as I went along. And earlier he had told me he really wanted to see that new movie you were watching when I left, so I invited him over to watch it with me, I added, to complete my story. Whatever, the movie is still in the DVD player. I'm going to pick up some food, you guys hungry? My husband asked. Yes, I'm starving. Can you get me a sandwich from Little Italy? I asked, not because I was hungry, but to buy John and I some time alone. The trip across town to Little Italy and back usually takes at least 30 minutes. I'm already going to Palermo's. Can I get you something from there? He asked. No. I really want my sandwich from Little Italy. I insisted, knowing this was my only chance. Okay, fine, he sighed, giving up without much of a fight. Thanks, hun. I'm going to run upstairs to change, I said, trying to contain my excitement. Be back soon. He shouted from the other room, before closing the door behind him. Once upstairs I stripped down and looked for something to change into. I quickly changed and grabbed an old t-shirt and long pajama pants to cover myself once my husband got back, shoes. I thought to myself, before heading to my closet. I spotted a pair of black patent leather heels that would be perfect for the occasion. I slipped them on and called down to John before heading back down to the living room. Now that we're all alone. I said, trailing off. A car just pulled up the driveway. John said, pointing towards the window. I turned to look over my shoulder. He's back. I shrieked in panic. I grabbed my pajamas. Running into the other room to put them on. I'm back. My husband announced, as he entered the house. I hope you two are behaving yourselves, he added with a giggle. Of course, we are, hubby, I said with a smile, walking back to the couch sitting on the end opposite from John. Come get your food from the kitchen. My husband shouted, from the other room. I'm not really hungry, can you put mine in the fridge? I shouted back. I heard him mumble something under his breath out of frustration. Why did you have me go all the way across town if you're not going to eat? He griped. Sorry, hun. I shouted, while sharing a look and silent giggle with John. My husband came back into the living room with his food and sat in the recliner against the wall. So, what were you two doing while I was gone? He asked. I told you we were going to watch the movie, I replied. The DVD player isn't even turned on, he said, growing suspicious. Oh, well, we were waiting for you to get back. Sure, okay, he scoffed. Did you get a drink or eat anything while I was gone? He questioned. No, we didn't do anything, I replied, with a touch of attitude. Because it looks like you spilled something. He pointed out. Oh, I must have held a cup between my legs when I was sitting on the couch. But you said you didn't drink anything. He accused. Then it's probably from when I washed my hands in the sink. I grabbed for an excuse. I guess the big wet spot on the front of your friend's jeans happened the same way, he said sarcastically, not believing a word I said. Why are you asking all these questions? I said, starting to worry that he might be on to us. What? I said, were you? He asked, staring me in the eyes. Whatever, I don't know what you're talking about. We just sat here talking while you were gone. I said, before grabbing the remote to start the movie in hopes of getting off the topic. Not 15 minutes of the movie went by before I was bored out of my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about John must be as bored since he was playing with his phone. A minute later I heard my phone's text alert from upstairs. Be right back, I said, as I jumped up from the couch. Do you really need to get that? My husband asked, giving me attitude. Fine, I'll leave it, I said, sitting back down. John must be texting me, I thought to myself. I spent the next 5 minutes thinking of an excuse to run upstairs and grab it. Hun, can I have a piece of your sandwich? I asked, noticing the red sauce that dripped down the front of his shirt. He tore off the end and handed it to me without saying a word. This sandwich just dripped sauce all over my shirt, I said, as I spilled sauce down the front of my shirt, calling attention to the spot. It's just a t-shirt. Go change, he said, sounding annoyed. Yeah, I probably should. Be right back, I said, walking across the room. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I pulled my shirt off to throw down to the laundry. Why don't you just strip right here? He said sarcastically. Why are you wearing a black? He asked, holding back his temper. It was the only one I could find, I said, unable to come up with anything better. Are you serious? You have an entire drawer full of new clean. Well, I just grabbed the first one I saw. Yes, the one buried in the back of the drawer because you always complain about how uncomfortable it is. He retorted. Okay. But this is what you change into to get comfortable while a strange man is in our house? He asked. Clearly not buying a word of what I was saying. It's just a stupid. I shouted in frustration, as I ran up the stairs hoping my anger would back him off. While in the bedroom I quickly changed my shirt and grabbed my cell phone to check my messages. Sure enough, there was a text from John. Well, here is something to think about for now, I wrote, before taking a picture of my to send to him. I left my room to head back downstairs before an idea popped into my head. I remembered all the times I jerked off a boyfriend under a blanket with a family member in the room when I was a teenager. It was a long shot, but the very least I could use it to hide my texting. So, I grabbed a nice large blanket and headed back downstairs to the couch. I sat down, spreading the blanket over me. After a few minutes, I glanced up to make sure my husband was still focused on the movie before pulling out my phone to text John. God, I wish. I didn't think he would be back so soon. Bad timing. I wrote. If we can be really quiet, I can slide over and jerk you off under the blanket, I suggested. Oh God, that would feel incredible. But until then. I wrote back, sliding up next to him on the couch. If he doesn't fall asleep, drive me home after the movie, and we can pull over somewhere, he suggested. Hopefully, he won't give me any trouble, I replied. I just might let you. I teased, winking at him. After my husband finished eating, his head started to bob like it does when he starts to dose before passing out for the night. Are you two still up? What was that noise? My husband asked, waking from his slumber. Yeah, it was the TV, I replied, hoping we weren't loud enough to wake him. Okay, I'm going upstairs to bed. Your friend can stay in the guest room, my husband said, as he rose from his chair. John and I were able to sit up on the couch before my husband turned around to catch us. I'll grab fresh sheets for the bed and get John settled, then I'll be in, I replied. As my husband walked up the stairs, I walked John to the guest room and helped him make the bed before saying good night. Come on. Before I go to sleep? John asked, lying on the bed. You know I want to, but my husband is right next door. I'm not even sure he is sleeping yet, I explained, not hearing my husband snore. What am I supposed to do with this? He asked. As soon as my husband falls asleep, I'll sneak into your bed, I replied, blowing him a kiss goodnight before closing the bedroom door behind me. I tiptoed into my bedroom and slowly climbed into bed, not wanting to wake my husband, if he was already asleep. I've been waiting up for you, George whispered into my ear, as he caressed my tit. Why did you wait up? You could have gone to sleep, I asked him, hoping to avoid where this usually headed. Because I have something for you, he replied. I really don't feel like it, I insisted. I'll get on top, it will only take a minute, he said, not helping his case. Fine, just hurry up, I gave in, knowing that it was going to happen either way. Looking over at my husband to find him fast asleep like he usually was right after that, it was probably for the better that he was asleep. The moment I was sure my husband wouldn't wake up, I slid out of bed and quietly snuck out of our bedroom, closing the door behind me. I walked into the spare bedroom to find John. I quickly pushed the door closed and climbed into bed next to him. You better keep it down or you're going to wake up your husband. John said, what the is going on in here? My husband shouted, as he pushed open the bedroom door to find John, presumably to let me deal with this situation. What the are you doing in here, this black guy in our house? He barked. That's my wife. But this has gone too far. Enough. My husband demanded, ignoring him. John continued, what the, Renee? He said angrily and in disbelief. Dude, give it up. John said. Renee, tell him to stop, my husband ordered, hoping, as his wife, I'd be more compliant. You heard what John said, I replied. Don't worry, hubby, we will be done soon, I said to my husband as he sat in the chair facing the bed. Why don't you get up here? I suggested to my husband jokingly, never thinking he would actually go for something like that. Without hesitation, he sprang from his chair, to be continued.